I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Welcome to the interview room, everybody. Time to take a seat. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. As always, coming to you from an undisclosed location. At TIR, we follow the evidence wherever it takes us on a case. If you enjoy true crime, you've come to the right spot. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And of course, all of your opinions are welcomed here. We only ask one thing. Please keep them safe, classy, and honest. Thank you always to our mods, the Fab Four, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa M, always keeping things classy in our chat. And without you, we cannot do any of this. Also, thank you to all of our mods, our members, and our subscribers. We love you guys. We only ask one thing, that you pass it around your social networks. And if you're new to us at TIR family, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up. That helps us move justice for families and for victims. Tonight's show, if you haven't noticed, I've got my sweetheart with me because we went to the University of Idaho off campus where those 4 sweet lives were taken. Tonight, we're going to take you to that area and we're going to give you an up close and personal observation of what we saw from an investigative journalist perspective and from my perspective as a retired homicide detective, also working with the Cold Case Foundation on active live cases around the country today. So that said, let's weigh in. Tell us where you're at tonight. I can see over here we've got Arizona in the house. We've got North Idaho already here. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a lot to cover. And we're going to do a Q&A at the end of, we did about a 30-minute video that we're going to do a start and stop that Karen and I are going to talk to. So we want you to be patient. We will answer some of your questions, of course, but kind of hold those towards the end. That way we can all have a very sincere conversation one with another in our chat. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Everybody's in the house. Washington, Canada, Western Mass, Maryland, Virginia. We do pray that Italy's in the house, that you've had a marvelous Thanksgiving and that you were able to gather around your family. Unlike
and let me jump in just to say hello and welcome everybody, and thanks for being here and joining us tonight. And I did just interrupt Chris, but we do all hope everybody had a wonderful and a happy Thanksgiving weekend and holiday with your loved ones, family, friends, whoever you gathered with.
Absolutely, hon. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover here. I see Utah's in the house. Everybody's here tonight. Barbados. Thank you, Tia, for being here, in Savannah, Georgia, as well, others. So, wow. We had some interesting observations, wouldn't you think?
We absolutely did. And we will be sharing them as we play the video and as the program goes. And as Chris mentioned, we'll take some of your questions at the end. It's we did this because we wanted to give you all deeper perspective. Maybe what you've seen on the news so far gives some idea of what it's like, but we wanted to be able to take a deeper dive with you and just give you more of an idea and a look at what the area looks like, what the university looks like, what the town looks like. And we did that, and that's what we're going to be showing tonight.
Yeah, and just a quick high-level overview. Karen is uh, an investigative journalist, spent over almost 25 years, started at the LA Times in Southern California, and then her career just took off. And I'm a retired homicide detective. I currently work with the Cold Case Foundation, and I happen to be in Idaho working on another case. And so we looked at each other and thought, you know what, let's go and let's bring people right to the scene. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take you to the scene, but kind of give you an overall run of this wonderful town. And the first thing I want to say about the town and the people of Moscow, Idaho, salt of the earth. The folks there, the businesses there, these people are absolutely um, amazing folks. And this incident and this tragedy has struck them to the core. We had an opportunity to interview many neighbors around the crime scene. We had a chance to meet many people downtown. They were very friendly. I even met the owner of the Corner Club, Mark. He is a very nice gentleman. His sports bar has taken a lot of hits because of the fact that's where the girls were. And so let's be nice to that guy and his business and the businesses around that surrounding area. I am a little concerned with some of the points of potential contact, what we call contact sites, of where these poor victims could have been, seen. And so let's be considerate of these other businesses that are still trying to thrive post pandemic, and let's not beat them up on social media. However, that said, we also had a chance to go downtown. And so without further ado, what we're going to do is we have about a 30-minute video, and we're going to do a Q&A to it, i.e. Karen and I are going to talk about our observations, hers from the perspective of an investigative journalist and mine from the perspective of an investigator. So are you ready, honey?
I'm ready if you are.
And if you guys haven't figured out yet and you haven't subscribed, man, I married way up, way up. And you'll see why here in a minute. Not only is she beautiful, she's very intelligent. And so, all right,
You're
here
so
we go.
sweet,
So
honey.
let's do the Q&A, or excuse me, let's play this and then we'll stop it. But when it starts up now, and also before we start, there's an update from the authorities today or yesterday, right? On that press release. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I think what they did is they
It,
adjusted timeline. Go ahead.
it was, yeah, they adjusted the timeline. It was from 2 days ago. It was from the 25th.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let's run this video. And then what I'm going to do at the end is we'll have the video separated out, but I kind of want to, weigh into this. And those of you who are know our TIR family, this is a class act here. And I kind of get in a zone when I'm looking at things. So forgive me for not seeing the chat go by, but that's why we got 4 marvelous mods. All right. So here we go. So tell us a little bit about the city as a whole, Karen, as we're going in.
All right, well, let's just set the stage for people here. So this is the drive into Moscow, Idaho, if you are coming from the south to the north. And as you can see, it's agricultural land. It is not heavily densely populated, and it's beautiful, really. And so we're heading into Moscow, Idaho, and just super quick, we looked up a few facts. Population of Moscow is about 25,000. It's a 7 square mile area, so it's not huge. And it borders Washington State. In fact, just a few miles away in Pullman, Washington, is Washington State University, another college.
Yeah,
So here we are.
go ahead,
Go
hon.
ahead. No, we're just pulling. Obviously, we're closer into town. We're at a traffic light here. And Chris, what do you notice about the
Yeah,
area
so
here?
yeah, the first thing I want to point out to everybody is, hypothetically, if a suspect were to come into this community, immediately some of the first things we're going to see here is the availability of traffic cameras. Typically, those are run by the state because this is a state highway. This is the 95. And so that information would be available to the Idaho State Police coming in. All right. You can see that camera up there very clearly. Now, the reason we want to kind of give you a geographical understanding of what is going on around here, this is a very tight-knit community. It's very rural, lots of farms around this area. So we're kind of coming into the heart. So what does that tell us about a suspectology? Okay, the type of individual, and by the way, we're not going to talk about the psychology of that individual tonight. We're going to break that down tomorrow night. I have the Greg Cooper, you guys know, who's a dear friend of mine. He was also the former unit chief for the behavior science unit, and he taught at Quantico, Virginia. So Greg's coming on tomorrow night. So make sure you come back tomorrow for that live, because that one will also be fascinating. But anyway, understand, the layout of what we've got going here, and what we look for is what we call contact sites. What lures, predators to this particular area, or is he a homegrown predator? Okay, so let's move forward.
And right now we're only about a couple of miles, if that, from the campus and from the neighborhood.
Yeah, we're about 6 miles to Washington State campus, honey.
Oh no, I'm talking. It's okay. I'm talking
No,
about
but I mean from
from
this
where we're
campus
at
to that
to.
campus, right? Right, huh?
Yes, yeah. It's 6 miles. It's like 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, and then coming in here on the 95 from the south, you can see almost immediately the A&W gas station there, and there are cameras at that location. And then this is the street that turns onto, this is Taylor, that takes us up into the neighborhood. Any thoughts on this, hon, in the general area?
Well, it's I mean, you guys can see it's it's not densely populated. There's a lot of brush. But obviously now that we're close, so literally on the right side is University of Idaho campus, and to the left you're looking at apartment complexes. That's all off campus, but you can see it's like literally a stone's throw. It's just a few yards, um, of between campus and off campus.
So we're coming over the hill here, and this is when you're actually going to see the university on the right. So this is off-campus housing. This is not on the campus of Idaho State. So let's always remember that as well. So here you can see there's the sign. All right, now we're going to start moving into what I would consider a geographical importance for this particular crime. And the reason I say that, as you can see, if it's a total off the 95 and into this neighborhood, it's not like someplace that just shows up. You have to, and you're going to see here, you've got to be pretty specific and or very comfortable with this particular geographic region here. Okay, so we'll get into that in a little bit more here. Why I'm saying that. So as you come down the street, to the left or to the right is the fraternity house, and then to the left, right where that. Go ahead,
And
hon.
and let me point just let me point this out. On the right, so you see that blue, it's the Sigma Chi fraternity house. You can see that big green space, open field, it's their backyard. And now we're looking at Taylor Street right here, and you're gonna see how close the girls' apartment or house was to this.
Yeah, and it's University of Idaho, not Idaho State. Thank you, Sergio, for catching my error on that. So I apologize to Idaho State. Sorry about that, guys. All right, here we go. So these are all houses around the main 1122. This is the streets where the Uber would have turned, or the friend who drove them home. It's a friend apparently, and they've not released that individual's name. But this is the area, and you're going to see this kind of goes up and it dead ends. See? That's important to understand. There's the house at about 1 o'clock. The house is about 2 o'clock now. It's on the right. But I'm going to take you up to this apartment complex here and on the other side.
And it's important to point out all of this is off-campus housing. You see this apartment complex here on the right. I'm sure you've seen it on the news many times. And all the other homes around 1122 King Street is all students. It's all student housing. They're private homes, but obviously they're rented out to the students.
Now, one thing here is if I were to keep going to the right, it will take me around to a parking lot that is behind 1122. Okay. So if I go to the right, it takes me behind the house, the target house. What I wanted to do is show you here to the left, this is ice. Okay. And I'm in a 4-wheel drive truck. So I come in and I actually have to put into 4-wheel drive to back out. So the weather that day is significant, especially at 3 o'clock to 6 a.m. In fact, it was icy fog, and I believe it was in the 20s. So that's significant in understanding not only the victimology and catching the type of clothing the victims are wearing, the girls, but also understanding what the suspect might be wearing and why that's so significant. And so I want to make sure everybody's on, target there. It's cold right there that evening. And you'll see where some of the cars were parked, where the snow had fallen when we were there. And by the way, this was Thanksgiving, so it was a ghost town right then, because most of the kids were home with their families. And I say kids because we have 4 children, so I can do that. Don't beat me up on social media because I said that. Anyway, that said, Any other thoughts, honey, while the car's pulling around?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody understands based on what we've explained that this is all like behind the house and the road. This is the dead end Chris had just mentioned. So if you like, we just drove past the house, you come up to this exact area. It's almost like a landing area. It's parking for, you can run the video, honey. It's parking for all this housing. And so what we're doing is you'll see he's turning around and then we park, and then you'll see the vantage point from this area walking back down towards the house.
So you have one way in, one way out. A suspect takes that into consideration if there's a vehicle involved. That's a high risk. A high risk. On a lot of the doors, there were flyers. There was a whole bunch of other, tip lines. We interviewed a lot of folks in that apartment complex right there. At the time where I'm showing this little street here, this is actually kind of a side street. Remember, if I would have gone around that building, I would have come down this side street. And so one of the things I wanted to understand from a, investigator position is, what did the suspect see? And what would the individual have been thinking? In this particular case, at the time, there were all kinds of cars parked along the right side of that road right there. That is an icy road going up that road, even the day we were there with the sun out. So now go back to the evening where it was, 28, 29 degrees or whatever it was. It was below freezing. That road would have been icy, or at least snowy, because if we look at some of the early photographs, you can see the line of cars that are there, and then simultaneously also recognize the amount of snow. Okay. Honey, any thoughts on this while we go up the road here?
No, let's just play it a little bit more so they can, get a better perspective.
Okay. So I'm actually looking for a solid place to walk so I don't slip. And it's kind of deceiving, those of you who live around ice and snow, even underneath those leaves, it's slippery. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to real fast is, you see this crime scene tape to the right. Notice it splits off. Okay. There's a reason for that. Either one, they expanded the crime scene, or two, they narrowed the crime scene into some type of physical evidence around the front of that building. So my initial thought was, walking up there, is the approach to this building to the rear and to the side, around to the front. Because you'll notice that tape, and we're going to go a little bit closer to that when we get to the back. But that was the first thing that caught my attention walking up this hill. You see the tape there clearly? It's around the front. And then you have this other tape on the other side. So somebody either pulled it around the front as a narrow crime scene, and then they later expanded it, or are they looking for physical evidence around that part of the building? And we'll talk a little bit deeper about this in a little bit. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. Karen, any thoughts? Well,
and if you're just joining us, this is the back view of the home. That's the deck that'd be the third floor, and then below it would be the second floor. And we're going to give you a better perspective here, you'll see. But again, we wanted to show the back of this home. It's woodsy. It is steep. Where the silver car is parked, that is typically filled with student parking, students' cars. But you've got a fair amount of trees back there.
And I talked to the owner of this car right there, and he told me that he backs it in purposely because it gets so icy in that area back there, that he pointed out some of the other cars, and you'll see it here in a couple seconds, that other students pull in, but they have a heck of a time trying to get out when it's icy and they start sliding down that hill. And so I asked him, what brought him to that thought process. He says, well, I back it up into this position so that I can just pull straight out. And I said, well, that's interesting that you're thinking ahead. And he said, yeah, my father is a retired homicide detective. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And we chatted it up a little bit, and he shared with me some insight in reference to the neighborhood and a variety of other things. But he was a very well-mannered young man who was going to school there, and he was pretty shaken up as well. He was sleeping that night, and like everybody else around there, a lot of them woke up to the commotion taking place. So we're going to do a deeper dive here in a couple of minutes, because I think this area here, you'll see how the other cars are forward, is really important to understand from my perspective. Yeah, so this is a three-level home. And so I see one comment in there about investigators looking out of the home to see what type of line of sight. That would be very important because of some things, and I'm going to point out a couple other things here for you. Obviously, if there is a voyeur of any way, shape, or form in this geographic region, then that line of sight becomes very significant. Now, the young man told me that the authorities had been up there the day before, so the day before Thanksgiving, processing that area. So that's the back patio, and you can see I'm pretty high. It is very hilly, and when you add the dynamic of ice and snow, it becomes even more interesting when you start thinking about a suspectology. What type of individual would take such a high risk unless they had a confidence level in relationship to the environment? So I'm not going to talk about tonight's show. We're going to do that tomorrow again, about the psychology and the type of perpetrator. I'm talking about tonight. I want to talk about what the perpetrator could be processing in relationship to the geographical aspect of this crime, because that is critical to understand. And that's why this was titled, He's in the Neighborhood, or He Knows the Neighborhood. Okay. And so any thoughts before I keep moving, Karen?
No, I mean, this is just, again, the back perspective. I was really surprised when we pulled up. Everything we had seen on the news obviously is from the front or the side. But you'll see, I mean, we've got this tree is blocking it pretty well, but we were able to be on the driveway away from the crime tape and be able to give you even more of a perspective of what's going on. But I think it's all helpful just to see the whole house from all sides. And you guys can see and help decide, for
What your
your
thoughts are.
thoughts about this
Yeah,
case.
we're not
Yeah.
we're not over the crime scene tape. We're not disturbing anything. Exterior light.
There's one
Now
light
explain
here.
that. Are those, is that those are on a neighboring house,
Right,
correct?
right, right.
Not on 1122.
Correct.
There are
Okay.
no what appear to be cameras.
No
anywhere.
cameras, one light, and then one other light here.
Same over here. There's a light on this house. I'm not seeing any security cameras.
Okay, so I want to talk about a thought process here to share with everybody. There's a fence right there, and we're gonna show that here in a second. But one of the things that we have to take into consideration is what's the visual that the suspect has to this residence pre-incident, before the crime occurs. Because what we have to think about, this is an individual who is processing very clearly, okay, how they're going to get into this house, and they've prepared themselves for it. So the thought process is, okay, well, what's the lighting situation? I would submit to you that the patio has those lights on it. They're still there and they're still lit. Becomes a higher risk of entry through that door of being seen. And you're going to see, or we learned some things from one of the neighbors, one of the neighbors tells us that, when they walk their dogs out there, and it seems to be a common practice for, those who have dogs in the neighborhood, that they would wear headlamps. And Karen, I think you have a headlamp, right? Did you bring one with you?
This is the headlamp type that couple of neighbors told us that they wear walking their dogs because it's so pitch black out
Yeah, and
there.
we're gonna tell you why here in a minute. But I wanna
Yeah.
focus on this part of the suspectology and the geographical concept of why this terrain is so important, and why it would be important potentially for point of entry, and or at least point of you know coming in, regress, coming into the scene, not necessarily coming from the front immediately, but maybe coming from the back. And here's where I'm going with this. As you can see, I'm behind the house, and right there is the balcony to the back. This area is very interesting from a geographic standpoint. I mean, this is the back side of the house here, and it comes up right up this little embankment here, but then it goes up into a really high hill. It'd be a very difficult task because there's a chain link fence here as well for an individual to commit such a high profile situation and then flee up this area. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying I don't know if it's probable. Now, the point of entry, this would be very easy to get into this residence from this part
of the backyard. Actually, if you look down here as well, it's a little icy, so right down there you'll see a screen laying. And these are some of the back bedrooms. It looks like the scene is frozen in time still. They have it shut down with an officer here. You can see that screen very clearly right there.
Okay, so the question on the fence, looks like a standard 5-foot chain link fence. Well, everybody has been concentrating on the screen. My experience has shown me, don't get a clarity of focus there all the time. You know, years ago, like I mentioned, if you're new to my family, that the TIR family, I had a chance to sit down with Jigsaw John, who was 44 years in homicide LAPD. And I spent 13 years in homicide. And he taught me how to look through at things differently. And I put that skill to the test in this exterior. I want everybody to see that cinder block underneath that window. And then while everybody's been looking at the screen as a potential, removed point of entrance, take a look at that cinder block. And then we have to think about, okay, why is that there? Not how did it get there? From a behavioral analysis aspect, why is it there? Is it part of the barbecue set? Is it, what's going on? There's a step upon a step, a seat. Okay. But what if you're a voyeur and that happens to be a step up when the curtains are closed? If there's curtains from the roommate or the people that are potentially staying in there, okay? How did that block get there? Because what we call DLR, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. DLR. Okay. To sit there on, grilling, I guess that's always a possibility. But this is a house full of girls. And the area as a whole, I went around and I looked at all the apartment complexes in the area, and I didn't see another cinder block other than one. And that was as a splash block for an apartment across the street or a house across the street. So immediately, I wanted to know, why is this cinder block right there in that yard? So could the point of entry be that screen? The suspect removed the screen. I don't know. Problem with the lights on the back patio. However, pre-incident, could this block be significant to the suspect in relationship to using it as a tool? It just doesn't fit. Thoughts?
And Chris, give us your opinion on where that screen came from, which window, because there could be one of two windows.
That window
it's right in the middle.
To the left. The window to the left. It's the same size as the window to the left, not the window to the right.
And the window to the right, we do not know what room that is.
Right. The window to the
Don't
left
know
looks like
whose room that is.
it's the vacant room, according to, what everybody's saying. Okay. And yes, those stones on the ground are very noisy. It's actually the ice that you hear crunching underneath my feet, and I left it in there so you could hear it. Okay. Remember, at 3 o'clock in the morning, that sound is even much more magnified, especially in that environment. Okay. And we can tell you that at that time, it was pitch black behind there, other than a couple of porch lights on the apartment complex, which would have had limited illumination. But had a suspect come around that back entrance or that side of the house and into that residence from that approach, he would have had some pretty good cover and concealment. Yeah, I mean, let's look through the eyes of the perpetrator. What's this individual doing? Has he scoped this out multiple times? What's he looking for? You can clearly see into this house. They were very social. All of the girls were very social. They had a lot of gatherings, you know, and so the dog beds, they're still up on the top floor there. The In the first couple of photos in that back window right there, you see that the chairs were lodged into the slider. It looked like, so they were maybe utilizing the chairs as a stick, to block the slider from opening, which may have caused, the suspect to reprocess themselves. If you go back and you look at some of the early photographs, you can see those chairs are up against that door, and it looks like they're in the track. Okay, I mean, I could be wrong, but somebody go take a look at that, and tell me what you think. But if those chairs are in that position, or if there's a struggle and those chairs are knocked over, I mean, it's anybody's guess right now, and let's not do that. But is it possible that they were in the door track? And if so, that makes it probable that now that window potentially could come in play. And then you put the block underneath the other window. Is this suspect, is he is he out surveilling this house on numerous occasions? And that's just kind of, something that doesn't look out of the ordinary, and it becomes a seat at some point during, barbecues and that kind of stuff. But it's just out of place. It just doesn't fit right. And here's that secondary, tape going around the front from that side. Just thinking out loud.
One thing that I noticed that I was, I mean, from what we know now, it's not surprising, but this is off campus. This is a house. Wait, freeze it for a sec, honey. And I was surprised that there weren't motion lights outside that we saw. And we're going to talk about this light, which this will pull back and you'll see the shot. And this is the apartment complex that's literally next door to the house. And just the lack of lighting or proper lighting in that entire area is an interesting aspect of this. So this light wasn't working the night of when the murders took place. We spoke with one of the apartment residents, and he's the one that said it's always pitch black out. He's the one that was one of them that was saying he used this as the headlamp to go walk his dogs. And he said a couple days after the murders, they got that light is now working. And he said it illuminates the whole area at night. It comes on at dark. But obviously the question is in our minds, like, wow, what if this light was working at the time? could that have made a difference? I mean, you've got nighttime. Maybe roll the tape, honey. You've got nighttime. You've got fog. It was a foggy, cold night, and visibility would not have been good.
And there are hornets' nests hanging out of those trees as well. It's interesting. But this whole area would have been pitch black the night of the crime. This whole area right here. So if you didn't have an exterior, or excuse me, some type of lighting, you had to depend on, a few lights behind the building, up where the parking area was again. Okay. Because that light was not working. It is now, but it wasn't at the time. Okay. Now I want to, all right. So this is the old homicide guy in me. I actually found a glove and turned it. I pointed it out to the officer who was there securing the scene, and they came and they collected it. So this has been, a very heavy scene as a whole. But if you'll notice underneath that, those leaves there in the snow, you'll see here, I'll point it out for you, that I discovered this glove, and fortunately they collected it. And the officer
And it should be noted, you could see this standing on the public road. This wasn't, nobody crossed any lines, so you could just visibly see it right from the road.
Yeah, and so a couple thoughts come to mind. I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, right? I'm saying, fortunately, it's still on the other side of the tape, and so they still had control of that scene. The officer that was there, obviously, they didn't know about it because he came over and photographed it, and he talked to the head evidence tech, and immediately, later they'd come out and got it. So here's the question. Is this from the night? Is it random, i.e., somebody missed the trash can and they were walking by and they threw it in, missed the trash can? Is the suspect taunting the authorities by, placing something like this, hypothetically? Either way, there's a glove, and it was collected after I brought it to their attention, and we had a great chat, and the guy asked me, some things, and I, shared essentially my bio, and he went, "Thank you." I said, "There you go." So you'll see it here a little bit clearer. I did not touch it. I brought it clearly. There it is to the left. Remember, I'm from Southern California, and we know the value of gloves. One glove, i.e., Nicole Simpson. Okay.
Right, and it's definitely worth pointing out that we don't know how long it's been there. Obviously, don't know who it belongs to, and police made a note of it and collected it and did their thing. So, and we may never know.
There he is, right there,
is the owner of that,
photographing it and making sure that they took note of it, and they later collected it. Somebody said Furman does live in Idaho. Now that's funny. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there.
And so this is obviously memorial items that were left for Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison. People stop by to put things down there.
Okay, another observation. Honey, what are your thoughts on this?
So let's show it to them before we explain it because you have to see it first.
Okay. And also, the other thing about the glove, hypothetically, what if it was taken from the house and the suspect dropped it? So hang on for a minute. I'm hearing slow down the chat. All right, so give me 30 seconds to my mods. Let me do that real fast. Han, you got the show
Okay.
for a minute while I do that.
Yep. Okay, so what you're going to be seeing here on the video is a different perspective, a different approach that one could take coming to the house. And you're going to see it from, I'm just going to tell you the highlight of it, what it is. So basically, if somebody came from Taylor Street, or if you remember, that's over where the Sigma Chi fraternity house is, that big open green space area and big field. And then you've got Taylor Avenue or Taylor Street. And we walked it. We thought this was really interesting. It's a direct line uphill. There's a concrete path and steps that would lead you right to the house. So if somebody was to, let's say, come in from Taylor, and by the way, the 95, if you remember in that part of earlier in the video, we made that left turn and we got on Taylor. So if you came in off the 95, turned on Taylor, came down, there is parking spaces. One could walk from Taylor Street all the way up to the front of the house at 1122 King Street or King Road. And
Okay.
you'll see that perspective. We thought it was interesting enough to point it out.
Yeah, and mods, I've just slowed it down, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. And thank you, everybody, for being so classy in this chat for these victims here. That's what it's about. So this is an interesting perspective here.
So what we did is we walked from Taylor Street. Okay, obviously there's the fraternity house. We know that's where Ethan and Santa were that night. And this is Taylor Street, where this blue dumpster is. And you can literally walk up here. And what I noticed, what we both noticed, we looked at the eaves of these houses right there. No security cameras, no outdoor lighting that was visible, no motion lights, and no any other kind of fixed outdoor lights. Now, that being said, they could have been on the front of these homes that you're seeing on the right. But what we're saying is this path would have been extremely dark that night, and it's a direct path right up into the front of the house.
So understand, also understand a dovetail on what Karen's saying, that all behavior has a purpose. All behavior has a purpose. So if this individual had parked out there, he or she has, it's going to be a he, he's got a direct path right to the front door of where these victims are. And the only other block that I saw in this entire area was right there to the right. As you pass this house, you see that double cinder block there? It's being used as a splash block for that downpipe. These are the only other blocks around. So that one up at the top behind the house at that window was purposely put there by somebody for something. And my thinking initially is, do we have a voyeur who has now taken it through the fantasy and he's been rejected, and that anger now is going to express itself? And Coop and I are going to break that down a little bit deeper tomorrow night, so don't miss that show. You can go look his bio up. He's on the Cold Case Foundation. He's the executive director of the Cold Case Foundation, where I am also working. All right, so we go to the front. Different perspective. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 potential points of entry, depending on the skill level of the offender. The door pad may have had, may have been functioning. We've heard different things about it being left open, about it not being open. And thank you so much, everybody, for, if you're doing a super chat, I haven't forgotten. I'm just clicking. That's, not why we're here. I'm saving those, and we'll get those later. But thank you up front. Appreciate your support. But anyway, going back to the door. If this door was left open, okay, if you were one of the girls on the first floor and you knew this was always, somebody coming and going, for, social events or whatever the situation is based on the lifestyle of those living there, which is typical, by the way, for any college. Okay. But they had a lot of gatherings, is what all the neighbors told us. They had a lot of gatherings. This house and one other that I'll show you, okay, had the reputation of being social butterflies. That's what they do. Okay? And we love those kind of kids. It's normal. Okay? However, if you're on the lower floor and you know that this is like, traffic coming and going, and they're going up to visit, I would submit to you at some point, those girls on the bottom are in a very high risk situation. So they're going to take measures of precaution on a nightly basis to lock those doors to their individual bedrooms, because not only do they have to worry about strangers coming in, they have to worry about strangers going into their own private spaces, i.e. their own rooms, which is a very, very, and my sweetheart, keep me honest here, for a woman, when you were in college and you had the lower floor, if you had the lower floor, what would you have done?
Well, yeah, you keep your door locked, keep your interior door locked at all times. Yeah, I did live on a first floor in a college off-campus situation. We were a little paranoid. Me and my roommate had locks on the windows, and we weren't in a party house type of situation. But yeah, people, it's widely known that they had parties on weekends, and neighbors reported hearing lots of, music late at night, etc. And so it is interesting that the two roommates that were home were on the first floor, and one, you have to logically assume they had their doors locked.
Yep.
Am I right?
You would assume that, and I think if they would have heard commotion, it's they probably would have popped out and then gone back in and locked the doors just to make sure. And that's and they got home, at a certain time, and they went to sleep. So, but we're going to break that down tomorrow night, Coop and everybody. But this, I want to show you this angle because you can clearly see it during the day. But in the evening, you can't see anything. And that glove now becomes significant over by the trash cans potentially, because is this a path? If that glove is connected to this particular incident, is this a path of, the suspect? Is he going up, to the right? Is he trying to get to the trash can, and through the adrenaline and things going on, he dropped it? Does it belong there? Was it there for quite some time? We don't know these answers yet, but I can tell you it did not look right. It stuck right out to me when I saw it, and I thought, okay, I got to tell the authorities real fast before it got, messed up or contaminated or somebody picked it up. So now that house at the end of the block was the other social house, according to the neighbors. You could hear music coming from that one and this one on the weekends. And kids, were blowing off steam for college. That's what they do. Here's another angle. All right, so a couple of thoughts on this from my perspective. Well, first, Hun, what do you think about this particular shot here? You took it.
Well, it's a couple things.
Mhm.
If you notice how these homes are like almost on top of each other. I mean, you've got, even though it's a two-dimensional perspective here, you can still see this blue house on the right. The window is, you could probably see into the third floor of 1122. And, my initial thoughts on this, you could see in pretty well. Again, it's hard to tell if maybe there's blinds in there inside and the authorities opened them up, or, who knows? We don't know. And this steep slope of this whole area, and then how it's on a cul-de-sac. And so this isn't just like a house on a busy street. You have to know how to get there in order to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Everybody tracking us here for, what the observation. Now, this side of the house over here, that ladder's been there. There's no scuff marks on the side of the house, it appeared. So, if you're going to jump, use it. You can surmise that somebody has the upper body strength to pull themselves up there, no problem. But then again, now they're exposed from the front of the house. Okay. So if anybody is, pulling up at 3:00 in the morning, coming home from a night out, boom, there's a problem. Okay. They could be seen. Now the lighting was to their advantage, to the suspect's advantage. But also now, so we come around this side of the house from the first floor there, you'll notice going on the second floor, there's starting to be a slope going up that embankment there. Okay. Add ice, add snow, okay, or, weather that evening, add the lights, the hanging lights on the sliding, by the slider there on the back patio, right? Now we have a lighting element, which is a disadvantage to the suspect because the whole idea here is stealth with this individual. I think we can probably all agree on that one. Now, is it probable or is it possible that the guy isn't thinking and he just wants to, expose himself like that? It's possible, but not probable because evident of the fact that he's not been captured yet. So this individual is a disorganized/organized. He's got a combination plate of things going on here. And Coop will break that down pretty deeply tomorrow night. Okay. You can't get anybody better than the guy that actually ran the behavior science unit, and he, so you'll learn about Greg when he's on here tomorrow. If you have never been to our channel here, you're going to really like what you hear. That said, so this guy, this perpetrator now, he's trying to lower his risk. He's trying to lower his risk. So this particular point of entrance, it could be a possibility for sure, but I would submit to you that the other side approach is much more advantageous to the suspect, i.e. from the back down and right where those blocks were and where that window is, and then maybe around that side of the house to the front door where the lights are off. Okay. If this is a stealth and then, when the suspect leaves, he could have gone through the front door, changed his mind about going, around the back. But I think that other approach is, potentially in play here. I don't know, like you, okay, but I would tell you, that's what I was thinking. And my wife will tell you I'm not right all the time, for sure. But at the same time, this did not fit the terrain coming in from this side. And plus you got to pass all these other houses on this side. The other one is right from the parking lot. You can just go around the building and boom, you're in. And if you just got with us, go back to the beginning of this when we're done, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Any other thoughts before I move on, hon?
No, let's keep moving. So where we're standing and filming, this is a cul-de-sac. And what stood out to us is there's many other doors, front doors on these homes.
So here we are.
That would have been easier, that probably would have potentially been easier to get into than 1122. But that's it is what it is. So all right, I'm gonna let Chris talk on the tape.
So, and that's a really good point, hon, because if you go up the street coming in from the fraternity, dead end, cul-de-sac. If you turn left and go past 1122 on your right, dead end. Comes around the building, down the side, and then you have to come in. There is one way into this neighborhood. That means the suspect is very comfortable with this environment. This individual who has done this crime is very comfortable with this environment.
1122 King Street, from the side. And if you look around at all of these different houses, you'll see that on the doors are flyers for these co-eds. And what's interesting here, just one observation, there is no question in my mind now that the individual who's done this crime knew exactly what they were doing in terms of that house. They have crossed the individuals within that property at some point.
I love this shot because the sun was coming down. Even though it looks blown out, it's as if they were there. Now we're going to take you back to the Plaza area and to the Corner Club. And this is the fraternity house straight ahead. And you'll notice the flag is at half staff. You can barely see it, but you can see it flying. And this is where if he would have parked on the street, he could have parked anywhere here and had that direct path right there by that dumpster that we showed you, straight to the front door of that residence if the individual was in a vehicle. If he was on foot, a bicycle, scooter, or whatever, then he could have stopped and parked anywhere. But it was icy and cold and 3 o'clock in the morning. So if he's on foot, he's comfortable in that environment. Very comfortable. And that's always something you have to keep into consideration. If you live in that area, please lock your doors at night till this investigation gets a little bit further down the line here. This individual will be captured, in my opinion. This is not a Ted Bundy coming into town. You know, we always think of the sorority, and by the way, the guy that did the bite marks on that is a guy named Skip Sperber. He was in the San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office, but he was back in Florida back in the time. An amazing human being, forensic odontologist. Skip, if you're listening. So this is the gas station on the right. There are cameras at this gas station. The investigators, the law enforcement authorities there are doing an amazing job. They are working 24/7, 365 on this case. They were there that day on Thanksgiving. So that tells you they are committed to the capture of this individual. So we're going to take you downtown. This may have been the ride if you obviously come the opposite direction, this would have been the ride they would have had to take to come home that night. But there's a traffic camera. So if they were being followed or surveilled in any way, shape, or form, let's pray that footage is available. Yeah, to walk to downtown, it's a walk. So most, I'm assuming, from that area would drive, but you know, you're young, and a lot of people like to walk, so it's very feasible to walk. I'm going to take you first to the Corner Club, who, by the way, I'm going to tell you again, Karen and I met Mark, the owner of the club. He's an extremely nice gentleman, and his business has been taking a lot of slack, a lot of hits on this thing. But remember, this is a local place where everybody goes to hang out. It was not unusual for that evening. The girls liked it, and they went there to hang out. So let's give him a break, give his business a break. He doesn't deserve it. He's a good man. And we don't want to impact his business in any way, shape, or form. I am curious, though, if this area was a contact point for the suspect, what we call a connection, right? Where did they pass their path? Where did it originate? Right? Was it this location? And if so, the location is not the problem. The suspect is the problem. And we need to be aware of that. So let's be conscious of that. We're going to go past it here. I'm going to come around to the back. And then I'm going to take you around the actual club. There are two entrances, one on the side and one in the back. In the back, there's also a hotel nearby with many, many, many RSOs at a single location there. Remember, people move. Karen, any thoughts on this while I'm going here?
I'm listening like everybody else is, and very interested in your observations on this at this point. After we take you to the corner club, we're going to be obviously going to the grub truck area where that was parked. And if you haven't seen our other video that we released on the corner club and the food truck, please check it out after this show.
And we're actually going to play the other end. So this is the other entrance, or one of the entrances into the club. If you parked in that parking lot and you walk around, this is the entrance from the back. There are cameras everywhere on this club. The owner is very conscientious of safety and all of his patrons coming into this to this club. He's very conscientious of it. And he does a good job making sure there are cameras on the corners of the building. There are cameras in the front. And so let's pray there's video. I didn't ask him about it. So this is the first video I did. We wanted to play this again. You'll see that camera right there at the corner of the building, right there. Again, this is not the suspect. I wanted to point out the terrain around the club because I'm thinking, is this a contact point? Contact point. What did the suspect see? If this was a contact point, what is the suspect processing? Because the girls are walking from this club about 5 to 6/10 of a mile down to the food truck. So they left there early in the evening or late in the evening. And if they were picked up, i.e. visually from an offender, I want you to see what he may have seen. So now we're driving.
I think it's important to point out also that The corner club is on a busy road, and it's the parking lot that we saw and we were in is wide open, and there would be a lot of visibility from all angles, no matter if you're across the street or down the street or behind the place. It's not secluded at all.
Yeah, very good point, huh? So now I'm taking you from the opposite direction. This is the plaza, where to the left, which you'll see here in a second, is a public restroom. There were some folks hanging around that even when we were there. The reason it looked so empty is it was Thanksgiving and everybody was out of town. Okay. But this is where the grub truck was, right here. Right to the left. You see that bench there on the left? 313 North Main is where that truck parks. And that's where it was that night. So I'm taking you back the walking route now. So imagine the girls on the right side of the street and we're walking back to the club, but imagine them coming from the club to this location. It's approximately 0.5 of a mile. So if they were on the right sidewalk, as we're looking at this video, this is the path they took. You're going to see it's not very far. Right there on the right. You see it with the vehicle. That is the club. So the girls come out of that club, either the side entrance, which is on where that vehicle is, or the back entrance. Okay. I'm assuming they have video inside of that club, so we'll know, the authorities will know what entrance or exit they took. So then they walk and they hit this sidewalk and they're headed down to that food truck, which is an every weekend situation you guys can see the videos. That truck is, by the way, is not to blame. Again, let's be mindful of these businesses here on social media. They're just trying to make a living. They're not involved. Let's not beat them up in any way, shape, or form. Okay. What we want to do is focus on the suspect. We want to focus on the suspect. So what does the suspect see now in this particular environment? What is he thinking in this environment? And we're going to break that down even deeper tomorrow night, again, with Coop, if you're just joining us. But here's the plaza. Very active area. The public restrooms to the right, down there, is concerning to me. There's a camera clearly on this business. This is where the truck was, right in front of this building. And there's that bench that you can see the girls are near. Straight across the street, 313 North Main, in and around that 313 area right there. So this is where you see the reflection of the car pull up to take them home. And that car would have gone down that route right there, straight up that street. And it would have taken the exact path essentially what we just took. It was one street over, but he would have had to merge over, and then he would have come straight down. He would have made a right past the A&W, down that street around, and then come up into that cul-de-sac, turn left into that dead end, drop the girls off, and he would have had to either back up into their driveway and come out, or he would have had to go around that building and then come back down and out from that neighborhood. Now, the reason I'm interested in this particular plaza is because it puts the girls at a higher risk level. Okay? And if the offender has contact with this particular plaza, and this would what we would be a contact point, right? Again, I keep saying that. This is where the suspect would have seen his target. Okay? And then that individual would have put into motion the fantasy that he was probably already processing. And when we break this down a little bit more tomorrow, this is somebody who is very, driven up here. There's a lot going on, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So as this individual leaves, or if whoever drove him has been cleared, okay, I know there are pictures of vehicles, a red Mustang. If this individual has been cleared, then that now shifts back to that neighborhood in totality. Somebody either was one, A, lying in wait, B, had been scoping out this residence for quite some time, 3, had a triggering event in their life that put this into motion. And that's why the BAU has said, start looking for changes in behavior, not only post-incident, but pre-incident. Was there a loss of life? Was there a rejection? Was there something, in a romantic situation that they got blown away? Okay? And that triggered a fantasy that's been going on for quite some time with this individual. Okay? And so there's a lot, we're going to break down tomorrow with Coop. But these are things that we also want to apply this second principle here with inside of this plaza. Are there individuals in this plaza who are also having these fantasies? And now those fantasies get put into motion. But we've got to, it's anybody's, I don't know the answer to that personally, but there's a camera up there that looks down on the public restrooms. I use public restrooms because that's a woman's restroom. So if you're intoxicated or you're hanging out, okay, this is the type of area that, is probably the only open bathroom. So girls and guys, girls specifically use the buddy system, and, one waits outside, one goes inside. And, I have a lot of history with bathrooms. Those of you who know me, I was the lead case agent on Matthew Checky, who was slaughtered in a bathroom in Southern California. That his death actually started family restrooms across the country. Okay. But in this case, this is also a place where registered RSOs potentially could hang out. This is an area that is a high risk. So you want to lower your risk by hanging out in pairs, which the girls did perfectly. Okay. All right. That said, let me get through, honey, while I'm doing this, what are your thoughts? And by the way, thank you so much for everybody who, your support. Are there any cameras available to the public? Probably not, main girl. Thank you, Debbie. We're so grateful for each and every one of you. Great detective work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you being here and the questions and the super chats and stickers. Thank you.
Yeah, Tina says, do the girls ever talk about a creepy guy by text phone conversations? I don't have the answer. Karen, do you know, honey?
We don't. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we don't know. Thank
Larry,
you, Larry.
thank you. You know,
Very kind.
and I'm going to have Larry on one day.
Thank
He's a
you,
great.
Mistress Pendragon. Okay.
All right, run the world. Thank you so much. Welcome to the TIR family. Thank you, Shanna. Let's see here. I agree. This person would have it comfortable in this area type of environment. It's hilly, steep, backyard, icy, multiple apartments would mean a higher chance of being seen. Absolutely, Tamara. That is a great comment.
Tamara.
And Tamara. And that's why I have my built-in English major. Thank you for doing this. Thank you so much. Gives a better perspective. Well, we appreciate your thoughts as well. Okay. Questions. I have a question. All right. Hit me. What do you got, Natasha? And if I can't answer it, I'll tell you. But my wife may be able to. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sandra. Appreciate that.
Sandra.
Right. What did I do again?
Sorry, I'm just coming in and
Thank you,
correcting you. So,
you're so kind.
thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Karen and Chris. God bless your family. Thank you so much. And Vet Girl, thank you. You did all of them leave the house around the same time. We heard the home arrival times, but not the departure. That is a great question. I don't have the answer to that personally, but maybe somebody else does. If you have it, please put it in the chat.
Right.
Please put in the chat. That is really a really good point. That we know what time they got home, but what time did they leave? I'm sure the authorities know that. And they're going to know that by the forensics on their phones. They're going to know exactly where each and every one of those victims were that evening. So, all right. It is 1 hour and 32 minutes. Perfect. We always do 1 hour and 30 minutes. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for that compliment, Jackie. We're so grateful. How do I know for sure it wasn't a female perpetrator? Thank you, Fire.
That's a great question. Let's address that.
Okay. Do you want to address it? Do you have any thoughts?
I do, but
As
I want to
in
hear
your
yours.
experience of writing about these kind of crimes, what do you think?
So, it's typically on something like this, it's never a female. Never a female on something like this. I covered a heartbreaking case of 5 victims, one 15-year-old, extraordinarily angry, extraordinarily, we'll just say messed up, and he used a knife. It just is typically a male. And I know tomorrow night's show, when Chris has Greg on, if from that FBI profiler perspective, they'll be able to give you all the reasons for why it is a male, but it's not going to be a female.
Yeah,
in my
apples and
opinion.
oranges. Apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. So Jody, yep. And there's only really been a couple female serial killers. This individual has just graduated to serial killer. And you can bet that this individual is a male. He is rejected, low self-esteem, yet projects himself in environments very comfortably. He's living a secret life. Remember, we live 3 lives. And the question is, why didn't the dog bark? That is a great question. Could have familiarity with the suspect. Or he maybe just doesn't bark. Dogs do different things, right? But that is a great, great question. We live 3 lives. Our public life, our private life, and our secret life. Everybody has them. And that means in this particular individual's life, he has primarily been priming the secret life. And what I mean by that is the process here, okay, is extremely important to find comfort in the world. So what they do is they project like a chameleon into the public and the private life. But within the secret life, they're hiding. And they're hiding their deviancy. BTK, Dennis Rader, was a perfect example of it. He was a Boy Scout leader. That's his public and private persona. Thank you, mistress. But in his secret life, he was keeping tokens in his desk drawer from his victims. One being the first, obviously, was Fox. And the Arturo family was the first set of victims. But his target there was the daughter, the youngest child. And if you think about that, that is the secret life manifesting itself. How in the world does the survivor room not see the blood when they saw the victims and thought they were passed out? You know, I can't answer that question. I don't know that, right? We don't know that. We don't know what they saw. I can assure you, whatever they saw was horrific. And my thinking is, and this is just my opinion, is if that suspect was in that house, it's possible they could have seen that suspect and panicked and locked themselves in, or thought, oh, it's just another visitor, and locked themselves in and went to bed. I don't know. We'll find out at some point. We'll find out. Thank you, John. A lot of things we don't know yet. A lot of things we don't know.
Chris, I want to jump in real quick and ask you a question that may be on people's minds. In a case like this, and you had just mentioned BTK, that case, what is your opinion on whoever did this is following the news, is watching and taking into account everything that's going on in the media, perhaps social media? Do you find in these types of cases that he would be tracking all that? And if so, on the police's end, what is their best strategy in conveying information to the public, knowing this killer could be there listening, could be out there somewhere listening?
Well, the strategy, obviously, from the BAU, I'm not going to talk about. However, yes, he is watching. And if you're watching this show, okay, they're coming. Trust me. They're coming. And yeah, they're very, as you know, honey, I mean, obviously, I've interviewed many of these guys. I have, even in my playlist, if you go look at Wesley Allen Dodd, I interviewed him on death row in Walla Walla State Prison in Washington in 1992, just before they hung him in the prison over there. And these individuals pay attention to not only, the news, they pay attention to social media. In fact, he could be any one of these avatars. Any one of these avatars. He, it is a male. It is a male. And you can bet. And he's living the fantasy now, post-incident. And the fact that he's graduated to a different level from actually executing the plan that night, right? is it's a thrill for him, because now it's gone even further into his fantasy. So now you're going to see, these individuals, also that's a great point too, Sleuth and Sandy. He was a church deacon. These individuals now they sometimes they draw, sometimes they write, but they play out the fantasy in a variety of different, type of ways. Okay, so they sketch. If they're artistic, then they'll figure out what they want to do the next time, and it's a constant build. It's a constant build. Remember, Ted Bundy came up with the idea of using, a cast to whack his victims on the head after he failed a couple of times to get some folks into the Volkswagen. So he learned from each incident. This individual has learned from this incident. Okay. He has learned from this incident. Do I think the mutilated animals are connected? You know what? Let's wait till tomorrow on that. I find it fascinating that there is a dog within 3 miles of this crime scene who has been skinned. There are 3, what they call the homicidal triad: cruelty to animals, eurasis or wetting the bed extensively, and arson. All 3 of those are what they call the homicidal triad. So let's look for things that are burnt around the area as well. Do you think it will strike again? He's building. I would be lying to you to tell you he's not building. That stress is building and that fantasy is building. And the authorities know that. So in all honesty to each and one of you and our listeners, it's not fear-based, okay? It is, if I lived in that area, I would tell my sweetheart and my family, lock your doors. Pay attention to what's happening around the neighborhoods. Look for behavior that's just out of sync. It just doesn't look right, like that block behind the window. Okay? Why it just doesn't fit, especially when you think that, it's a college campus, right? And this is not to be fear-based. This is common sense. It's common sense because your level of awareness has to equal the suspect's level of awareness. If you're not up here, then your guard is down here and he's up here. You have to change that dynamic to come up here. Okay. And you have to be, as they say in Hawaii, akamai. You have to pay attention. Okay. You have to pay attention. Okay. Because if you don't, and you lower your awareness, okay, then he has the advantage. And you want to take that away from him because he's looking for, if you think about a hunter, for an example, okay, not all hunters, what I mean by this, not, hunters who are hunting for meals and food and all that stuff. I'm talking about a predatorial hunter of a sexual deviance nature. Okay. He's already scoped it out, just like a regular guy, a hunter. Hunters go out and they look where they're going to go hunting. Then they buy all their gear, okay, and then they go get their tags, but then they go out to where they're going to go hunting. And that really raises their blood pressure, their pupils dilate. I mean, there's a whole bunch of physiological changes that are taking place until the hunt. And then they go on the hunt and they look for that victim. That's what we would call a victimology. Okay. Well, this suspect is looking for a victimology. Okay. So you lower your risk by lowering or by doing things not necessarily in habit or emotion right now, but walking around with your friends, groups, 4 or 5 at a time. Okay, not maybe 1 or 2. Okay. Do I think this is related to, like similar back to, Gainesville to answer that question I just deleted? No, I don't think so. I think we're going to end up finding that this individual is very, very fluid to that area. Now, could he leave? Yeah, the probability of that goes up. Now, what I mean by that is he goes looking to different areas. Okay. Maybe not this particular area. Okay. So he's very comfortable where he's at. So he's probably a voyeur. I would say that. That has built his fantasy over time. And you have a house full of 5 girls. Okay. I think Nathan was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And
You mean Ethan, honey?
Ethan, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Ethan. And yeah, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I don't think the perpetrator expected him. And I'm sure that will come out at some point. I don't know if there's an essay element to this in terms of what the coroner's released at this point. There doesn't seem to be an essay assault, but that could be because he was interrupted. Okay. We won't know this yet. But tomorrow night will be a great program with Greg Cooper. If you're not familiar with our channel, he's going to be here. And thank you so much for saying that and for your support. Why didn't the dog bark? I already answered that one. I think I answered this one. Oh, we did not visit the Mad Greek place. There's no reason to. It's great food, great people who own it, great restaurant. I don't know about the other stuff. Doesn't fit the profile on this. When I lived there, cut through campus to go to, yes, thank you, Megan. Very quick, very, very good shortcut. All right, hon, why would he leave the 2 girls alone? Let me ask you, Betsy, I'm going to answer this one. I think it was getting too complicated. And I think they were locked in their rooms. That's just my gut. And that's just my thinking. There could have been some kind of maybe a peek out the door, something to this from one of those other survivors that freaked him out. They lock the door, boom, that kind of problem. But we'll find out. I don't think it matters at this point. Great question, staff. And no, you really can't tell. I mean, I've arrested every ethnic type of personality you can, think of, right? In terms of you name it. So I don't know. So that said, all right. Everybody, if you're new to our channel, we only ask one thing, that you subscribe, please. Please hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done so, please do it now. We're trying to grow. And then also send this out on your social media platforms. Tomorrow night, please come back. We've got Greg Cooper. He was the FBI unit's acting chief. He ran it. He's a protege of John Douglas. He even brought in Mary Ellen O'Toole, who ran it after him. So, and I know Mary and others so Greg has going to be here tomorrow. Tomorrow night, it's going to be an hour different, not 7 Eastern. It's going to be 8 Eastern because we had to get around his schedule. But you're not going to want to miss this. Trust me. The people that are out there, Greg actually taught at Quantico the psychology aspect of what these profilers are thinking of that went out there the other day. For all we know, they were his students. But he is the guru, and he's going to be with us tomorrow night. So don't miss this. So that said, I give my sweetheart the last word. His name is Greg Cooper, Cooper. Look him up on the Cold Case Foundation. He's the executive director if you're brand new with us. And I want to say thank you to our mods and to everybody that's been here. And then I'm going to give my sweetheart the very last word, and we will see you tomorrow night. And then we're going to go to Hawaii. If you're new to our channel, we go to Hawaii right after this. So keep the family in your prayers. Please be considerate and thoughtful of the businesses in that area. Don't beat them up on social media. They're just trying to make a living. Let's go after the bad guy here. And please, please, please help this family out. If you have a tip, please call the authorities first. Don't put it on social media. Call the authorities first. Thank you so much. If you're just getting with us, go back and watch the replay. And honey, you have the last word.
And as always, like Chris said, our hearts and prayers go out to the families of these victims, the families of Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison. And we're grateful that you're here with us. And please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, click the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.